welcome back to another episode of Johanna Banana. We are on episode 23, and this is our autism episode, but we're going to recap from our last episode. Throw me the cap, Liz. Okay, so I'm going to get my Kong cap on here. Okay, so my last episode, thank you all for watching, and it was a completely therapeutic crying episode, but thank you all for watching that. I am now wearing the necklaces, as you know, and it feels good. I feel closer to my dad wearing these necklaces. I want to share with you some of the feedback that I got from one of my viewers, my childhood friend. I don't know if you guys remember, but I shared this story. She's a teacher, and I share the story of her, how she met her husband at work, and their long romance, and then they got married, beautiful wedding there. Anyways, she wrote to me. She lost her dad when we were kids, and so she definitely knows what it's like to lose your dad, and what it's like to go through grief. So I just want to share briefly here some of the feedback that she gave me from my last episode, the death of my father. Okay, so she says she talks to her dad all the time. She says that maybe sounds weird. No, that doesn't sound weird. I get that a lot. Every once in a while, I do talk to my dad. It's mostly, I miss you, Dad, or I'm doing it, Dad. I'm getting through it, Dad. I'm trying my hardest. Those are the things I say. So she talks to her dad all the time, but she still feels that he's with her, and she doesn't pick up on any kind of, she wishes she could pick up on some sort of messages from the other side, but she hasn't. She feels, and it's true, I have people that say there's just another dimension. She feels like he's beyond reach, but that he's with her all the time. And yeah, I guess I kind of feel the same way. I don't really ever expect to get any messages from my dad. I kind of feel like he's where he belongs. He knows where he was going, and he's good there. And like I said, I do talk to him like she does. The thing that I really loved, the feedback that she gave me, this is something that I just loved. And I love this. She said that our love is transcendent in time and space, and our bond with those who have passed never breaks. And that's right. I didn't think about that. That was something that was really nice. You feel like you lost so much. You feel like you're empty. How do you go on? You just feel lost, and you feel like you lost so much, but you have to remember that you had a lot, first of all, and that yes, it's not completely gone. It's just kind of changed. It's in a little bit of a different way. But I really thought it was so comforting when she said that our bond never breaks. And you're right. That love never dies. It doesn't go anywhere. It will always be there. So I just want to thank you so much, girl, for sharing. Your message really did touch me, and it meant a lot to me. That was great feedback. I'm going to share another feedback after this episode, which was really nice. This is from my consultant, Elle, who knew my dad pretty closely, and I thought this was something that I loved that she wrote back after my last episode. She said, your dad was such an inspiration to us all on so many levels. And that was nice. I love the fact that my dad not only touched my life, but he touched so many people's lives, and that's amazing. Another thing that my consultant, Elle, wrote that I really liked, and it made me feel a lot better. She said, you have done such a wonderful job putting your life together this year on every level. And that was nice. Healing. as you venture forth on Johanna and Aiden 2.0. I like that. Can't wait to see our next chapter, Aiden. So that was nice. So we got a lot of great feedback from people with my last episode talking about my dad, and it really did. It really helped me feel a lot better. Just venting. So, but we are not going to be talking about that anymore. Thank you all for the great feedback. Let's get into Aiden's story. This is going to be about Aiden. He's going to be doing the talking, and I'm going to be sitting in the background. Yeah. All right, Aiden, let's talk about your story. Now we're going to share Aiden's story. I guess I am gonna talk a little bit first, just to kind of give a background, because yes, there is some stuff that you obviously were too little to know about. So I, as you all know, am an only child. Okay, and I was not thinking that I was ever going to have kids, so I didn't babysit kids. I'd never really been around a lot of kids. I think, God, Aiden, you were like the third baby I ever held, and you were my own baby. Okay, so I wasn't familiar. I didn't know about the milestones and that kind of thing. I was kind of a neat freak, so I always let Aiden be on the bed. I didn't want him to be on our hardwood floors. So yes, Aiden didn't meet some of the milestones. One of the things, I think when you were 9 months old is when there was something that was like not right. I went to the pediatrician. I remember stopped reading the milestone things because they did kind of depress you. Like, is your baby doing this at such a time? Is your baby doing that? And you were never doing that. So I just was like, I'm not going to read it because it just depressed me. But when we went for your 9 months checkup, that's when we kind of realized that there was some developmental delays, as they say. Okay. You were a couch potato. Okay. I didn't let you play on the floor. They're like, is he pulling himself up? No, but he watches shows nonstop. Yeah. So that was so that's why we had to join we joined the little gym. Yeah, you hated it too. You hated it. People were, yeah, we joined this little gym, and and there were some signs with autism. There was some early signs, but I didn't know. We could never console you. Okay. The best thing to do for you, and this is how Aiden became a blanket kid, is when he was fussing and stuff, I couldn't console him. And so I would just give him his little blanket, and I would say, take your blanket. He would just use that as like a comforting thing. So those were some signs. But, you went to preschool, Aiden. I don't know if you remember preschool, but you went to preschool, and that was okay. But back to when I went to the 9 month, so you went to the 9 month checkup, you weren't pulling yourself up or doing whatever you're supposed to be doing at that age. So the doctor said, if you don't walk by the time you're 2, I think I don't know what the deadline was, 20 months old was your deadline. If you don't walk by the time you're 20 months old, you're going to need to go into physical therapy. And I thought, oh my God, this is awful. And of course, you always feel like a horrible parent, right? Like, what did I do wrong? Blah, blah, blah. But so this is the funny story, Aiden. So I was all stressed out, and I think it was getting ready. You were about to hit that deadline. And I thought, oh God, Aiden, we're about to hit this deadline. We're going to have to do I said, would you please just walk? And he was a tall kid. When we did the mommy and me swim classes, I'm carrying this big tall kid, and he wasn't walking. And I put you down for a nap, Aiden, and I was like, would you please just walk, right? And I don't know, right? My dad would say the prayers have been answered, because I swear you woke up from that nap, Aiden, and you walked perfectly from your bedroom to my bedroom like it was nothing. So I thought, okay, we didn't have to do the physical therapy. So, okay, no big deal. You go to preschool, no problem, okay? Now, you only went to preschool 3 days out of the week because, I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. Now, this is when the shit hit the fan, okay? This is when there is a problem. There was all these little red flags, just like in all my relationships, right? Little red flag, maybe a problem. You're not walking yet. Okay, maybe a problem. There was a time when I went out to California to visit my stepbrother and his wife and his girls, and you are the same age. You're right in between his two daughters, and you didn't say anything, and my nieces never shut up. Blah 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 blah. And I thought, I was so depressed, Aiden. I'm like, because you were 2.5, and I'm like, granted, girls do talk a lot more. Obviously, here I am talking a lot, but I was just so depressed that Aiden, I took a moment. I wrote down every word you said at that age. I don't know, you were 2 or 3, and I had a sheet of something like 20 words. No, did you say 20 words in a complete sentence like my nieces did at that time? No, you didn't, but you did say about 20 words. But so there was red flags, red flags, red flags. But we didn't know. I didn't know about autism. I had no clue. So it wasn't until the shit hit the fan when you started kindergarten. When you started kindergarten. Now, do you remember? We had just gotten walked out on. I didn't want to disrupt your life, so I was doing the customer service call center work at night from like 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. so that I wouldn't disturb you. But I wanted you to go to full-time kindergarten. I picked this charter school because they said it was for kids that weren't, daycare kids, and Aiden wasn't a daycare kid. I was a stay-at-home mom. So I thought a charter school would be better, smaller classrooms, that kind of thing. But it wasn't. They weren't equipped for kids with autism. We didn't know you had autism. Do you remember that at all, Aiden?
Maybe. Was the charter school, did it have like a playground in the middle?
Yes, it had a playground in the middle.
Was my classroom space themed?
I don't remember it was space theme. You had a very strict teacher. She was not nice. It wasn't like a typical kindergarten teacher.
Were the classrooms themed at all?
I don't remember that part.
Well, I remember going to this place very briefly, and they had these themed classrooms, and there was this playground in the middle, and it was kind of all fenced in.
Yeah, it was fenced in. It was. It was probably that. He only went a week, and then your dad and I had to get called into the principal's office, and they said he was immature, a young 5. You were a young 5 because you had turned 5. Yeah, you were young 5. I know people would never say that today. You were a young 5 because you had just turned 5 in May, and school started in August. So they said you could either go to a public school right around the corner, or you could just wait a year. But I needed you to go to school because I was a newly single mom, okay? And so we ended up we decided to take Aiden over to the public school. And then that's when you met the best kindergarten teacher ever. And do you remember her? You loved her, right? Do you remember her?
I think so.
Mrs. Brown?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was awful taking Aiden to school. I literally, and this is exactly why I take photos of the dogs now for my customers, because when I'd take Aiden to school, I would just, oh my gosh, first of all, he was a true mama's boy. And so he would just, I would have to peel him off of me. He would be screaming bloody murder, and I would have to peel him off of me. Do you remember any of that, Aiden?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he made a really good friend. She was a really good caregiver. Her name was Angel, and she was an angel. And she said to me, she said, do you remember her? She was your first best friend. She said, when you leave, he misses you a lot. So, and that's when, so Mrs. Brown, his kindergarten teacher, diagnosed Aiden. She filled out all the paperwork, and she was the one that said, you're autistic. Yeah. And so there was, there was some signs, but I just didn't realize it. So I've got to shut up. I want to shut up because I really want you to talk about your autism and what it's like to have autism. Okay, so go ahead, Aiden. You talk. He was diagnosed at 5. You proceed from now. Go ahead, take the stage.
So, in the early days, it was a lot harder than it is now because back then I wasn't going through, all these different kind of things to, I guess, help me cope with it. So, when I first got to this public school, um, I used to have these issues. I think I used to fight people. I used to run around. And eventually, one day, there was this random person that just kind of showed up, and they started just kind of sitting in the classes I was in. And what I particularly noticed was that they kept looking at me, which I found weird. And I think I eventually just went up to them and asked them, "Who are you?" Because I was just so confused why this person was following me. And I eventually figured out that it was this person that was pretty much supposed to watch me. And I had a lot of those people. Um, most of them, most of them between, I think, kindergarten and maybe fourth grade. When did I start getting out of my? I think it was sometime in fourth grade.
Okay, so Aiden he had a lot of social issues. You, for some reason, with your autism, you thought everybody, you were very defensive, and that's why you were kind of getting um,
Hmm.
into it with people. Even when kids were being nice to Aiden, he couldn't recognize, and that's a social autism thing. When even
Hmm.
kids were complimenting you or saying nice backpack, you took it as like, what, you want my backpack? You didn't take it right. You didn't have the social skills. You very much always thought kids I guess this is why you relate more with adults. You always thought kids were out to get you for some reason, and I don't know. So that
Hmm.
was the hard part. It wasn't until Aiden was in the fifth grade that he finally had a birthday party with a bunch of kids. You really didn't have a lot of friends because you kind of really felt, and I didn't understand that, you know. But you had a one-on-one. So they're not called AIDS. Okay, AIDS is a, I don't know, demoralizing term now. It's a degrading term. So it's one on one. So you had a one on one at kindergarten. So we did 2 years of kindergarten. Aiden did 2 years of kindergarten. We did a half day kindergarten. That was taking. I was working nights and just taking a little nap briefly, and then having to go
Oh,
pick you up. And
God.
then you did full time kindergarten the next year. So we did 2 years of kindergarten, and he had a one on one. He went through several of them. We used to have a little book. We had a notebook. Do you remember the notebook, Aiden, that they have to write how your behavior was? Because it was like
Yeah.
when you're dealing with an autistic kid, you know, they have their good days and their bad days. And every day I would just be like praying, like, please, be okay. Um, you went to detention school once for acting out. You were the youngest kid ever to go to detention school. That was heartbreaking. I think you were in kindergarten or the first grade. I don't remember, but you had to get bused to a special detention school.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it was really tough, but yeah, you're right. Things kind of got better once we got the one on one, and one of Aiden's one on one he Aiden is still talks to this day. They're good
Yeah.
friends now. So, but some of the ways where your autism comes out, Aiden, is where do you really feel like you get your anxiety issues? Escalators and stairs really get to Aiden, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, there are certain places or certain stairs that we can't go up because it does really get to you. Um, there's certain textures, bottle textures, shampoo bottle textures. I have poured shampoo bottles into another bottle because Aiden doesn't like the texture of that bottle. But the soap is great. But yeah, that bottle's so it's like if we like a texture of a bottle, I'll just take that soap and I'll pour it into the bottle for the right texture. Clothing, he doesn't do any clothes with zippers. He doesn't have any jeans. You will never see Aiden wearing jeans with zippers. Buttons, right? Buttons is another thing that Aiden has issues with, right?
Yeah.
Buttons. What else, Aiden? Oh, when he was really little, he was like a pregnant lady with the smells. And he used to just do you remember when you were little, everywhere you used to go, if there was something smelling bad when you were little, you'd be like, oh yuck, gross, I'm dying, oh it stinks, it reeks. And it used to be embarrassing, because you'd be out in public like, oh, what's that smell, oh my god, it reeks, ah, ah. So I got Aiden these little keychains. Do you remember the little keychains I got you, Aiden? So I used to get Aiden these little keychains that smelled really really good. Like one was apple. Do you remember the apple one?
Oh
There
yeah.
was an apple, there was a
Then there was,
donut, the
yeah.
donut. And so when we would go out in public, he would take these little keychains, and the minute he would go into a store or somewhere where it stink or somebody didn't shower or whatever, would be out in public, and he would be like, oh, the smell. I'd be like, smell your keychain. And he would just, and I'm like, okay, so I didn't have to hear you go on and on about the smells. Loud noises, like it
Yeah.
still gets to you. Even when we went to go see Maverick Top
Oh
Gun,
yeah.
he had to wear earplugs because of loud noises.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there anything else you want to share, Aiden?
Um, Not really.
Okay, all right. That is Aiden's story. Aiden's still on IEP. He doesn't go to public school anymore. He goes to Primavera Online for high school. Unfortunately, the high school that he was going to, or just it really wasn't meant for him. He is not really a morning person, and it started really early in the morning, and he just didn't care for that high school. So now you just go to Primavera Online. So he doesn't have the whole social issues, but he really liked his elementary school. He really liked the school that he went to 2 years of kindergarten all the way to eighth grade. He still talks to some of his teachers uh, from there. But yeah, it was really hard in the beginning. It really was. And yeah, you feel really guilty as a parent, like what you did wrong, and then your kid's acting up, and then it's stressful. But with the help of a lot of one-on-ones and some great teachers, we've really come a long way. And a lot of people don't even realize, they'll forget that Aiden's autistic. A lot of my friends forget you're autistic until we get in a crowd and stuff. uh, yeah, LB, when we went to San Diego, she's like, what's the problem? And I'm like, it's all the crowds. Remember, he's autistic. Oh, yeah. So we kind of forget now, it comes out in different ways. But that's the high functioning spectrum. So, that's why I never wanted to classify you as special needs, okay? Because you have issues just like everybody else. And I'll push Aiden. I push him all the time. Get out there, because I'm a social butterfly, I'm an extrovert, I'm in your face, and so I'm dragging my kid everywhere, and I'm like, you're gonna deal, and we'll just, Ada learned at a very early age, deal with it. And he'll even tell me now, he'll throw it back at me like, you're gonna have to deal. And that's all part of it. So anyways, thank you for sharing that. It was a great story, Aiden, and I wanted to talk about autism because it's something that's very. It seems like everybody's on this spectrum, and so I'm so grateful that you shared your story. So thank you. We're going to share another story next. Okay, so Zach's story. Now, one of my girlfriends. This is the funny thing. She kind of introduced me to my first husband, Aiden. Yeah, this is how long ago it was. And her son looks so much like her. When I met her son when he was a toddler, your father and I went out to California. I think it was for my dad's retirement, and that's when we met Zach for the first time, and he looks so much like his mom. It was kind of funny. So we're gonna share Zach's story, um, and let's now. Zach was diagnosed at the age of 2. Um, on 2 years and 4 months to be exact, I was when he was diagnosed. Now, the funny thing is about Zach Aiden, he did meet all of his milestones. It wasn't like you, and this is an interesting thing because have you heard, Aiden, about shots and vaccines being tied with autism?
Sometimes, yes, I have
Yeah,
heard that
yeah. So
occasionally.
this is what happened. I don't know. We don't know because it's all we still don't know, and this is why ever we can't figure this out. But this is interesting. So at around 16 months after his MMR shot, which I feel so bad I should have looked that up, but he started losing the eye contact and
Hmm.
staring into space, laughing, walking on the toes. Do you remember you used to walk on your toes a lot? Do you remember that at all, Aiden?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do the tippy toe. You don't do that anymore, but he used to do that, walk on the toes, stare into space. So it was at his 2 year checkup that they decided to get him evaluated. So it was the doctor, not the doctor, it was a kindergarten teacher that diagnosed you, but with Zach, it was a doctor when he was 2 years old that suggested for him to be evaluated.
Hmm.
So at 2 years, 4 months is when Zach was diagnosed with severe autism, not the high functioning autism, but the severe autism. And the worst time for Zach and his family was when he was 5 and 9. And that's because he was going through the public school system that he was going through was completely different than the public school system Ada was going through. Um, they just were ill equipped. They didn't know how to deal with him. It was really upsetting because they do autistic kids, any kids that have behavioral issues, they can get violent. Aiden used to kick kids, he used to hit kids, he used to oh god, the worst thing Aiden did one time was the teacher wanted to shake his hand and he's like, screw you, and so he like spit in the hand and like went to go shake the teacher's hand. Ugh. Anyways, they act out, and this is what makes teachers, they didn't know how to deal with him, and they just consider him, he's a brat. And the really sad thing is because, and we don't know about autism, even though these kids aren't speaking or they're not writing, we don't know how much of it they're absorbing though. But these people just acted like he wasn't even in the room. So my poor girlfriend had to deal with these teachers that were supposed to help her, not they weren't helping her, they were just making fun of her kid. uh, they were making rude remarks. He was Aiden, this poor Zach was getting like suspended. Some of the teachers, so they didn't have to deal with him, would just suspend him.
Oh.
And that but ultimately all these suspensions turned out to be his saving grace, because
Hmm.
one of the principals, okay, finally, the last principal suspended him for 10 days, forcing the district to have to put him in the private autism school.
Hmm.
And that's what saved him, was his private autism school. It seemed to be, and
Hmm.
that's where he's going. He's going to go to this private autism school until he's 22. He's 20 years old now, Aiden.
Wow.
20, I know, 20.
Hmm.
20 years old. And he's going to be going to the school until he's 22. He also volunteers at a food bank. He stocks the shelves at a food bank. And when he turns 22, he's going to go to one of those schools that has like a day program for adults.
Hmm.
Yes. And my girlfriend has never given up hope. I'm sure she still hopes, and we all hope, that one day he will talk. That would be awesome. But But isn't that interesting that that he met all of his milestones? Like with Aiden, there was red flags. I just didn't pick up on them, but there were red flags with Aiden. They definitely, as you look back, you definitely had autism right from the beginning, but I didn't know it. But with Zach, it's really interesting because he met all of his milestones, and it wasn't until after he was talking, and it wasn't until after the MMR shot, which we need to look up. What is this shot, Aiden? Let's look this up. I feel like such an idiot that I didn't look this up before my show, but you know me, I don't prepare, I just wing it here because I. Oh, measles, mumps, rubella shot. Okay, okay. Yes, we've all had that shot. So even after that measles, mumps, rubella shot, that's when he started not having the eye contact. Do you remember not having eye contact, Aiden?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I
why.
remember, like, if I tried to move my eyes towards somebody, my eyes would just stop me. There was this weird thing that would just stop me from looking at people, no matter how hard I tried.
Mm-hmm.
There was always something that was counteracting it.
Yeah. And sometimes you still to this day, when you're really stressed out, but not as often. Do you remember you used to have to get out? They call the stemming, like self-soothing cues. Go. You remember doing that? I know I can't do it as well as you, but do you remember that? You would get on his tippy toes, you'd spin, he'd go. I don't know.
Yeah, what was it? It was like
I don't know. Yeah, it was like this,
something
that. I
like
don't know.
that.
You're doing. I don't know. Again, it's all the self-soothing things like that. But yes. So yeah, I'm just so outraged. That's outrageous about what poor Zach had to go through in the beginning. You know. Aiden's saving grace was his one-on-ones. They were really good, and we had a really good support system. There was only a few teachers that were like really bad, but you know it didn't matter because it seemed like after a year they were gone anyways, and then it was okay. So we lucked out, but poor Zach did not luck out until he got to the private autism school. And that was his turning point. Your turning point was one-on-ones, and his turning point was at autism school. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Zach. Aiden and I wish you all the best of luck. I'm hoping one day Aiden will be volunteering somewhere, stocking shelves, doing something. I'm looking forward to that. But thank you for sharing that story. And we wish you all the best, Zach. And we are so sorry about what happened to you in the beginning. That is just wrong. We are wrapping up another episode of Johanna Banana. This was our autism episode. I'm thinking we have a little surprise. And I'm not sure if it's going to work for my pet episode. So I don't know if I'm going to do a pet episode next week, or if I'm going to, it's actually Father's Day next weekend, isn't it? Yes. I'm running out of time. So scratch the pet episode. We're going to do a Father's Day episode. Then we'll do a pet episode. Or should we do the guy? I don't know. We got to do a Father's Day episode. Then we might do a pet episode. We still got to talk about the mooch and the psycho. We're going to throw them in. I am trying to wrap this up. Really, I am. Don't laugh at me, Aiden. I know I have a lot of things I'm trying to talk about. But there's just a couple more stories I want to share. A couple of my viewers that I really want to share their love stories in my hope section. So we probably are going to be filming for the rest of the month of June. I'm like, I'm going to wrap up this in June, but whatever. I have too much to share. God. But I am wrapping it up. Thank you for watching Johanna Banana.